gave a lot of their time and effort to make it successful, and we want to say thank you. We also want to say thank you. I don't know if we've mentioned online the 2 new classroom buildings that we have here at the church. Some of the people that are familiar with the church know that we used to have a mission building available for Vacation Bible School, and that is no longer available because of disrepair. And so someone brought in some buildings, and people have put in time and effort to bring in electricity and insulation and siding and lights and windows. But apparently that's just one. Is there a second plan? So thank you for those who helped do the work on that and make that possible. And it was used this week, right, for VBS? So good. We mentioned before, but we'll repeat it. Be in prayer for those who did attend VBS and the message that they heard. I was commenting earlier at Sunday school to think that somebody is making the songs, writing the songs and putting together the music and the teaching aids and the lessons year by year, year after year, so that we have a lot of that material that's packaged up for our use. But we do pray that the message that went forth, the message of salvation and God's desire to use us, will plant in their hearts. And even as they go through the summer, as they go into school, that they'll remember that message and remember some of the songs, I guess. Some of the motions maybe also. So I'm just going to make a little comment about prayer. Sometimes I think we pray unintentionally, and we're asking God to do something that He already has told us He wants to do. So I wonder sometimes if my prayers need to change. So instead of praying, Lord, I pray that you would bless this service that we're going to have. It's almost like we're begging the Lord to do something that we know He wants to do. So how do we pray more properly? And sometimes I don't want us to focus on ourselves, I guess, too much, because we do want our prayers to focus on God. But we need to be praying that we would be prepared for the service, that we would be prepared to worship the Lord in song, that we would be prepared to listen with our hearts and with our minds, and that we would be prepared to be changed. I think God is always ready to transform us. We don't need to pray, Lord, transform me. He wants to do that. What we need to do is to pray, Lord, I want to listen today so that I can be transformed. So, this is a special message for all of you as fathers. Not that the women can leave yet. You'll be allowed to leave in a few minutes, maybe 30 minutes or so. But we want to honor the fathers in the audience today. We don't have many fathers to be in the audience, but there are a few. We got 4 of them, 4 fathers to be. Is Jim counting? How many fathers do we have in the audience with children in the home? We maybe won't talk about that. And then we have fathers in the audience who have children coming in and out of their home, but not regularly living at home, maybe. So hopefully there's something that will touch all of our hearts, challenge us in terms of being a father that is a blessing to the children. And I am selfish, so I didn't want to give away my time today. But I was tempted to ask the men and even the women to stand up, take 30 seconds. What is one thing that you remember being positive about your father? One positive memory that you have about your father related to two areas. One related to the church or the ministry or to God or to religion. And what is one positive memory that you have about your father related to just life in general? Do I dare give away some of my time? Anyone rushing to share a memory of your father? A positive memory, right? A positive memory of your father related to religious life and life in general.
And I remember Dad being Sunday school superintendent for many years and working with young people. And I remember his belt reinforcing my attitude on life.
All right, for those online, a memory of a father being involved as a Sunday school superintendent and involved in the church ministry, and then the positive memory outside of religion that the father had a belt that reinforced what?
My attitude on life.
That improved Steve's attitude in life. I'm sure that most of us can have similar memories of at least the second part, right? Anyone else, real quick? Positive memory of religious or in general?
We were always in church every Sunday because Dad was a preacher, and then he always taught us to put away our tools.
Interesting, okay?
Borrow something, put it back.
Good. We were in church because our dad was involved in church, and general memory, we were told to put away things that we use. If you use something, put it back, put it away. Interesting, I remember hearing a message some time ago that referred to a college professor. And the message that I heard, the preacher was basically saying, all these dreams about changing the world and people can't even clean their room. And so the idea was, start small. If you got a big dream, at least clean your room, you know. All right, any other memory?
I got one from a deal that I got from my dad that said, keep America clean.
Good. Keep America clean. Start with your room. Yeah, that's right. Don't look at my desk. Anyone else? So I'm going to share the religious memory I had of my father was that he was involved in ministry, that he loved the Lord, and that he wanted to serve the Lord in some way. I remember him even wanting to be a missionary. I forget what country he was thinking about going to. But the general memory I have about my dad is, if you're going to do a job, you might as well do it good the first time, because if you don't, I'm going to make you do it the second time. So I don't know how well I've learned that lesson, but that's a positive memory I have of our fathers. We do have much to be thankful for. As I look out on the audience, some of you are fathers, I know, some I don't, but the ones that I am aware of were fathers that loved the Lord also, and parents that loved the Lord. And you have to assume, like Steve said, there was correction that helped us be better and survive life. I think in terms of being better and correction, I have in my notes for later, but maybe we won't get there, but there used to be news, popular news some years ago of kids being killed for their tennis shoes. You remember those news stories? That people, young kids, were killing their classmates because they had tennis shoes that they wanted or something like that. And I'm thinking, wow, how many of our prisons are filled with people who never learned there are consequences to actions. And better that we learn them as a kid with a belt than that we learn it as an adult behind bars for 20 years. And maybe we look back and we say, well, I don't even really remember the pain of that belt. But 20 years of my life in prison, oh, I think I'd remember that, all right. Well, I thought today that we would spend some time with the acronym of FATHER. I never was a good speller, but I think I have FATHER down. F-A-T-H-E-R. And I could have maybe thought of a S to go with it, but I didn't take time to do that. But F-A-T-H-E-R. So real quick in your mind, what are you thinking of when you think of something that starts with the letter F outside of the word Father? My first thought was faithful. And then this morning I was thinking of other letters that start with F. And I thought of the fearless is a fool because he fails to focus on the fierceness of the foe. I don't know what that means, but it's got a lot of words that start with the letter F. But let's go back to faithful. That's where we want to be. Thinking about God as our Father and the faithful God that he is. And then thinking about myself as a father and some of the failures that I've had. And what a challenge to the younger fathers, still with children in the home. A challenge to the fathers to somehow be faithful as a father. And you can take that in a lot of different directions. You can take it in the direction of being faithful to the marriage. You can take it in the direction of being faithful to your job. You can take it in the direction of being faithful as a believer. But somehow, that our children see us as faithful, and they see the challenge from us for them to be faithful as well. In 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 1 and 2, it says, "Let a man so account of us as of the ministers of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. Moreover, it is required in stewards that a man be found faithful." And when we think of responsibilities as a human, and especially responsibilities as a father, and people watching us and looking at us and wanting somebody that's faithful. And like I said, some of us don't have children in the home anymore. Some of us might not even have grandchildren in the home very often. But who is it in our circle that is looking to us for somebody to be faithful and to stand up for truth, to stand up for right, to stand up for completion of a job? There are people watching us. Galatians chapter 1, some of these verses I'm just going to read. Galatians chapter 1 and verse 10 says, "For do I now persuade men or God, or do I seek to please men? For if I yet pleased men, I should not be a servant of Christ." And somehow as fathers, we need to recognize that we are servants of Christ more than servants of men. We want to serve our families, yes, of course. But ultimately, we are servants of Christ. And people want to see Christ in us. So I thought of a song that I think we're going to close with. "He leadeth me." But I'm just going to read some of this. He leadeth me by his own hand, he leadeth me, his faithful follower I would be, for by his hand he leadeth me, his faithful follower. That we stand before the Lord, and once again, not to focus on us, but to recognize that God is there wanting to use us, and we say, "Lord, I come before you, I want you to use me. I want you to speak through me to my children. I want you to speak through me to my grandchildren. I want you to speak through me to my community children, to be faithful." A is available. I've mentioned in the past, Jennifer's dad used to have the A&W root beer, and he used to always say, "Available and willing." And so the song I thought of with "Available," I don't know all the words to it, and I didn't take time to look it up, but I think the title is "Cats in the Cradle." Is that right? "Cats in the Cradle." And as I remember the song, it starts off with the boy talking to his dad and say, "Dad, let's go play ball." Or, "Dad, can you show me how to build this little model airplane I have?" And the dad, being a busy dad and not being very aware, maybe A stands for awareness also, not being aware, says, "Hey, son, I'm busy. I gotta go to the job, or I gotta take care of the grass. I gotta mow the grass," or whatever it might be, just always putting the son off. And the son grows up, the son gets a job, the son has kids, and now the father has got more time than he knows what to do with, and he's going to the son, and he's saying, "Hey, son, you want to go on a camping trip with me?" Or, "Hey, son, let's go play some ball." And the son now is saying to the father, "Hey, Dad, sorry, man, I got no time." How's the song go? "We'll get together then." Yeah, we're going to get together later on. And not available, not aware of the passing of time and the quickness of the passing of time, and not aware of the loss of opportunity to speak into the child's life. Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 4 says, "You fathers, provoke not your children to wrath." That's the negative side. But the positive side is bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Maybe let's turn in our Bibles to Philippians chapter 4. A couple verses there. Philippians chapter 4. We know verses 4, 5, especially 6 and 7, right? "Be anxious for nothing, but in prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which passes all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. But verse 8 and 9, Paul says, finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, meditate on these things, the things which you have learned and received and heard and saw in me. These do, and the God of peace will be with you. And, we were talking in Sunday school, the idea that we never learn everything. We're constantly trying to improve. We're trying to have the Lord speak to us new. And, we've read these verses many times. And we think of all those things, the noble and the just and the pure and the lovely and all those things. But what struck me this week was the idea in verse 9, the things which you have learned and received and heard and seen in me. And thinking about the idea of availability and awareness, that idea of spending time, it takes time. Paul was with these people. He spent time with them. And he could say, when I was with you, you saw this in me. This is what you need to be thinking about. And so as fathers, grandfathers, whatever it might be, what is it that the children are seeing in us that in time to come you would be able to write to them and say, hey, son, daughter, you remember when we were together, you saw this in me. This do, and the God of peace shall be with you. T stands for teaching. I should have come up with another word, but we'll come up with that later maybe. I remember Jennifer saying to me years ago when Jessica was still in the home, something along the idea of, Dan, find something to say positive to her. It's like you're always trying to teach her. And I'm not sure exactly what I thought then, but like Jim says, of course, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to teach our kids, right? Well, somehow, E is coming up. E is for encouragement. So this is T for teaching. Teaching our kids. Teaching them about life, about love, about the Lord, about the gospel. I mean, there's so many things that we need to be teaching our kids, and some of it is just life, dealing with life. And like Linda said, if you get something out, put it away. What are you leaving a mess on the floor for? Dina, what was it? Before you what? Before you clean?
Keep America beautiful, clean your room.
Oh, keep America beautiful. Clean your room first. Start with your room. We're there in Philippians. Go to Colossians chapter 3. I put down the idea of focus. Teach our children focus. Colossians chapter 3. Verses 1, we'll start there. Verse 2 is the one I want. If then you were raised with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ is, sitting at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on things on the earth. For you died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. Set your mind on things above, somehow to focus, to complete a task, and to do the task good the first time. Who is it that's in our circle of influence that we might be able to challenge, to have a focus? Think about the Lord. What did Jesus say? If I have it here in my notes, Matthew chapter 16, then Jesus said to his disciples, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whosoever will save his life will lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? To somehow teach our children that, yeah, you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of your job. You have to take care of your home. You have to take care of your responsibilities. But no matter how much you accomplish in this life, it's never enough if you forget Jesus Christ. If you don't have a focus on the Lord, everything down here is temporary and it will pass away. To somehow challenge our children to have a focus that's on the Lord. And then maybe to go along with that, that song that we had earlier on the video, Even If. And you think of Daniel and his 3 friends standing before the king, and the king saying, bow down to my altar, or you will be cast into the fire. And the 3 friends, you can picture them standing up, maybe not in pride, but standing up with confidence that says, O king, we cannot bow to your idol. We will never do that. And you can throw us in the fire. Our God is able to deliver us. But even if he doesn't, we will not bow to your idol. To somehow challenge the kids in our circle of influence, it says stand up for truth. Even if God doesn't save you, do it anyway. We all want to see the miraculous. I do. I want to see the miraculous, and I want to see, the waves parted and the storm calmed. And yet I can think of people in my own life and history that are dead and gone. And the waves weren't parted for them. The storm wasn't calmed for them. And yet they were faithful and said, even if, I will serve the Lord. H is next. I put healing or helping. And Jennifer told me, don't spend too much time on the first part. You'll rush through the last part. And it's already the last part. And I'm still on the first part. H, healing, helping. The idea of teach your kids that trouble is going to come. Why in the world do we have people thinking that they're going to get through life without trials and trouble? And I remember a preacher also I heard say, and I don't think he originated this, but he said, we need to teach our kids and prepare our kids for the road. That's the idea. He didn't use the word teach, I think. We need to prepare our kids for the road rather than trying to prepare the road for our kids, as if they're going to get through life without any trouble and trials. Man, probably all our kids are old enough to realize that life has got troubles and trials, but we sometimes still think we ought to get through them without them. Jesus Christ, when he was here, he says, these things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. I was going to have us turn to 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 14, 15, down to verse 18, but I'll let you look at that later on. 1 Corinthians 2, 14 to 18. Where Paul talks about some of the tribulations and persecutions and afflictions that the church went through. And in verse 11, I'll read that. As you know now how we exhorted and comforted and charged every one of you as a father doth his children. To exhort, to comfort, and to charge everyone. E is encouraging. We get to the E for encouraging. Somehow to let people and to let our children see that there is a hope, there is a future. We talked about it in Sunday school also, the idea that the redemption of our bodies, the rapture, the Lord is coming back. That's our hope. In spite of all the difficulties, there is a hope. I'll read 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 5. Paul tells Timothy, watch thou in all things, endure afflictions, do the work of an evangelist, make full proof of thy ministry. And one of the commentators said, complete the task, make full proof of thy ministry. Do the work, get it done, don't give up. And then R, the last one, is releasing. And I think I mentioned this to the mothers during Mother's Day also. But all of our children, they're only given into our hands for a short period of time, right? And we have to release them. And to recognize and to realize that we have but a short time. And then they're not gone, but they're gone. They're sort of on their own. And we still might have a small bit of influence with them, but they're making their own choices. They're making their own decisions. They're raising their own kids now. And what is it? We keep praying. Maybe we keep praying that when the grandkids come to our house, we can have an influence somehow to challenge them to think about God, to think about what God wants to do in their lives, to release them. Turn the pages. I thought of that song also we had earlier, Shine on Me and shine through me and flood the nations with, what is it? Grace and mercy through me. Flood the nations with grace and mercy through me. That through me people might see Christ. That through me people might be challenged to live for Christ. And after our closing song, if you guys want to stick around, I'll finish my message. We're going to close with the song, He Leadeth Me. His faithful follower I would be.